Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Nemesis, David Howard, back here for another episode of Cinema Crusaders. That's right. This time we are going to be doing Inception Part 2. We're going to be talking about the characters in Inception. Then we're going to be giving our overall rating of the movie and how we think it translates to a modern audience. We already kind of talked about that in Inception Part 1, but we're going to be wrapping that up today. We're also going to be talking about a few things we've got coming up. But before I do any of that, I want to bring in my co-host today. You know him from Omen Comics and from Comic Crusaders. He writes great retro reviews on comics and movies there. He's also on the Sloppy Spoilers podcast with me. None other than the great, the wonderful Shadewing Steve Sellers. How you doing, Shadewing?
I'm doing pretty good, aside from occasional connection lag issues, but I will try to be on as much as possible. I will also give you like a brief plug. The Guardians of Ilium campaign, which is for a time travel historical fantasy comic that we're doing, is going on right now. We're only looking for $2,800 to cover like costs for paying people. That's about it. So please support us. This is an issue where I really I'm proud of having written. So I hope you at least look at it and take some time to check it out.
Where can we find that? Is that on Kickstarter?
Yeah, it's on Indiegogo right now.
Indiegogo. All right. So everyone go check that out on Indiegogo. So, and we'll make sure in the show notes below, we'll get the links to that Indiegogo campaign. So you can go check that out. And speaking of Omen Comics and everything, we are, and I was going to talk about the changes coming to Cinema Crusaders. If you may have noticed, our intro movie there has changed. We're updating everything. We're going more modern. And it's October. So this is Halloween Movie Madness month for Cinema Crusaders. So this is our last regular show for a while. And then we're going to be doing Halloween themed shows October 10th. And before I go there, I want to announce that Cinema Crusaders starting next week is going to be going live. So we're going to be airing live on Sundays at noon Pacific. So, and our next show will be October 10th. It's going to be Dracula, 1931. And we're also featuring an interview with the writer of the Elvira series for Dynamite Comics, David Avallone. So check that out. And tying into Omen Comics, we are going to be featuring Mike Nunnally, who is part of Omen Comics, and he will be doing an interview for us, a live interview on the 24th, when we will be doing another movie, a John Carpenter movie. We're going to be doing The Thing. So we'll be doing The Thing on the 24th, and then the 17th is going to be Attack the Killer Tomatoes, and we'll have another interview then. That's going to be actually with Bill Richardson, who writes things, horror comics, and does a variety of different things. That's going to be a live interview, and we're going to have a Halloween show on our Discord channel, Comic Crusaders Discord channel. We're going to be streaming Halloween movies and some other things and doing giveaways and stuff on Halloween itself. So check that out. So without further ado, Inception Part 2. So let's kick right into it. Characters. We're going to talk about the characters here, and we split this into two parts because there's so many great actors and actresses who were part of this film. And I guess we have to just say actors now because the actress that was part of the main cast is now Elliot Page. So he is now part of this film. So speaking of Elliot Page, let's kick it off right there. Elliot Page's performance in this movie. What'd you think of it, Steve?
I generally liked it. I like the character of Ariadne, who is very much, sort of like the newcomer character. She's the character that is coming in and learning about everything. But she's also the character that has kind of like the more moral voice on the team. She's somebody who's not really coming in as a criminal. She's coming in and saying, Dom, you better tell these people what's going on with you before things really get worse. So she is that backstop to Dom's more unsavory side. Let's just put it that way. So I liked her character. I think Elliot Page played it well at the time. I think that he did a pretty good job, I think, of understanding what that character needed to be. Now, you probably wouldn't recognize him today for obvious reasons, but I just, it's nice to just kind of look back at this movie and kind of see the kind of performances he was capable of doing in this film. And yeah, I really don't have any problems with either the performance or the character. I think that it's one of those things that really, really work.
I agree. I think he's always been capable of playing this type of character that has this understated gravitas to them, where they're able to really sum up what's going on and bring and ground people in reality and either what they're doing right or what they're doing wrong. And you could see this even when he was playing oh god, not Jubilee. Why am I blanking on this?
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde, yeah, golly. It was a late night last night, folks. I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, even when he was playing Kitty Pryde, it had that sense of gravity to the character. So it was really good. It was a little different than I guess what we were used to for most of the X-Men characters, but I think it really worked. And I enjoyed his take on Kitty Pryde in the X-Men movies. I don't know how you felt about it, but
well, Kitty's my favorite character, so I'm pretty particular about who ends up playing her. I thought that Elliot Page did a really great job. He's basically my definitive Kitty, and at least on screen. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, he looked the part, he acted the part. I never felt like there was anything that was not Kitty about X3. And keep in mind, I really don't like that movie at all. So the fact that I am praising Elliot Page's performance as Kitty when so much of that movie failed for me is a high compliment.
Yeah, and I thought he was great in the same character in Days of Future Past as well. So
yeah, I agreed with that.
So I think that he's gotten a little bit of stick from us for the Vanya character, and but I don't know how much of that is the performance and how much of that was the material. So I think it was maybe 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So moving on, then one of my favorite characters in this film, because he's one of my favorite actors in a whole range of different movies, was Ken Watanabe Saito. I love this character. The sense of menace that he has, but it's understated menace at the beginning of the film, and then as he's coming along, he just seems to effortlessly put in these performances that demand your attention. And Saito is a important character, but he's not a huge character, I would say. I think that's fair to say. But I absolutely loved him in this movie. I loved his performance. I loved the chemistry between him and Leo DiCaprio was kind of surprising to me, and I'm not sure why, because they're both very good actors. But I just absolutely love the way he brings his character to life in the film. And the fact that Saito, even though he has this Japanese samurai mentality to him where he is menacing, but he's honorable at the same time. He fulfills, he actually honors his promise at the end of the movie. Whether we believe that's real or not, that's up for debate. But I love that about this character in the film. So even though he made it clear at the beginning of the movie that he was not a man to be trifled with, he was also a valuable ally and then an honorable man at the end. And I really enjoyed that. What did you think?
Ken Watanabe, it's interesting that you mentioned Samurai, because one of the places where I remember Ken Watanabe from is The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, where he played this really great samurai character, who is basically the last holdout of the Meiji samurais. So yeah, so it's the same guy, and as much as obviously Watanabe's playing a different character, he brings that same charisma. He brings that same presence. He has an authority to him that commands your respect, no matter what role he's in. I think that definitely played a role with Saito's character. Yeah, he's, I would say, like corporate samurai, if that would make sense. He has that whole corporate daimyo sort of thing going on, where he's the lord of what he surveys, but he honors his word, as you say. And I would say also some of it is driven by the fact that basically Cobb saved his life at the end. I mean, he's the one who brings him back from limbo. And I think being a man of honor and being, that samurai figure, it's like, yes, I'm going to give him his life back because he gave me mine. And so that sort, and that also shows what the relationships of the characters has grown into by that point. Because at the beginning, he's not really all that trustful of Cobb at all. But at the end, he definitely says, okay, you have earned your money. You have earned what I promised you. I am going to give that to you because you showed me respect and you came through for me at the right moment. And I absolutely love that. And yeah, he can be a brutal corporate SOB at times. He can definitely be manipulative, and you see that side as well. And all of that makes Saito a really, really great character. But I would say that I can't imagine anybody but Watanabe playing that character because he embodies him with such authority that he commands your attention every moment he's on the screen, and I just love it.
The only thing I would add to that as well is that you contrast his, that side of his character you're talking about with the fact that this man has hatched a plan to sabotage someone else's mind in order to get ahead in the business world, which really reminds me of a great Michael Crichton book, Rising Sun, where there's a quote in there to the effect of, to the Japanese business is war type thing. And you really kind of see that here. So it's a very interesting character, and it's one of the characters I really love in this movie. I mean, and there's lots of them that I think are great, but I enjoyed that one, that character quite a bit. Next, I want to kick it over to you for go a little bit different direction here. Tom Berenger's character, and let me find the name of the character.
Peter.
Yeah, Peter. So, what did you think of Tom Berenger? I mean, this was a fairly small role, but a very important role. What did you think of Tom Berenger in the movie?
Yeah, I think that Berenger's performance was really good. I mean, Berenger's always been a really good actor. I've loved him since Sniper. But this particular role, he didn't have a lot to work with here. And you can argue, like, he never really plays the real Peter at any point, except for maybe a little bit in the beginning, where we see Ames going in and spying on him, and trying, basically studying the mark, as it were. So through all that scene, and we really don't get a whole lot of his real character there. He's just doing what he does, as part of his business job. Where we start seeing more from Berenger and his performance is during the dream state, where we see projections of him being played out within the mind of the Killian Murphy character, Fisher. So, we get to see those projections, but those projections are really interesting because this is how the Fisher imagines his godfather to be. And so we see initially that, he's one of the hostages. We see that, that they're trying to break him and all of this. But where we really start to see things get really interesting with Berenger, I think, is later when the group is trying to turn Peter against Fisher, or Fisher against Peter. So so when we start seeing like that depth and the fact that, maybe this godfather really is ambitious, maybe he really does have, things that he's not telling his adopted godson. We're seeing all that. But at the same time, there is a fatherly element to Berenger's character, which is on display the whole movie. And really the whole idea is Fisher is torn between his two fathers, his real one that he has a falling out with, and the godfather who is trying to usurp the role so that he can have control over the company. And so we get to see that Berenger definitely is playing the power behind the throne, and he does that effectively. We definitely see that. And Berenger has, enough of a presence, I would say, that's convincing, and he's able to take that role and run with it, even though he doesn't have a whole lot to work with, except for like the projections and that one very brief moment early on.
Now, what the next actor I'm going to bring up is interesting to me. This guy is like the chameleon of actors, and I'm going to bring him up because really Berenger's performance goes hand in hand with this guy's performance, which is Tom Hardy as Barnes. It is so interesting to me because of the way, Tom Hardy is impersonating Fletcher.
Uncle Peter.
Yeah, Uncle Peter at different points. And so these two characters kind of mesh at different times because sometimes you have Berenger who is playing his character who is being impersonated by Barnes, so he's trying to, put out Tom Hardy mannerisms and stuff. Meanwhile, you've got the exact opposite going on. So these two just mesh so well together. And Tom Hardy, I will tell you, I mean, the first time I really became aware of this guy was when he was playing Bad Bats in Fury Road, you know, and then also, you know, he was in the Batman movie as Bane, which I don't want to talk about that, you know. So, but
he was also in Star Trek Nemesis.
Was he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was the Romulan bad guy.
Okay. It didn't even occur to me that he was that guy. But
yeah, you wouldn't think of that. Yeah.
This guy has become, like I said, I really think he's a chameleon. He can play almost any part, you know, and of course he's in Venom as Eddie Brock, but he does a whole host of things, and this guy really is incredibly talented. And I think that talent is on display, full display in this movie. Barnes is a con man, a forger, an actor. He's got some great martial skill as well in this movie. I mean, he's just an incredibly talented character actor, and the character itself is just incredibly well done. And I loved seeing the crossover between Behringer's character and Hardy's character in this film. I thought it was really fascinating. I thought those two actors did a great job trying to emulate the performance of the other one. I would love to pick their brain to see if they compared notes, you know, during the film, because it was really impressive. I really enjoyed it. What did you think about Tom Hardy?
I want to know exactly what Christopher Nolan told both of them, because I have a feeling that there was definitely some really good direction behind the scenes for both of them, in addition to them probably studying each other really well. I really love them both. Tom Hardy is one of those actors that, you know, okay, he may look like a big buff guy, and that usually suggests like somebody who is, you know, not the brightest guy in the room. No, not Hardy. Hardy is a really, really smart guy, and you understand why he was cast as Bane later on, because he brings that to that character. And I will also say that Tom Hardy, in terms of sheer talent, is saved Venom single-handedly. There were a lot of problems with Venom. Tom Hardy is now one of them. His acting is impressive, and you get to see, like in this movie, how he gets to become the Tom Hardy we know him as now. And in the role of Ames, you get to see that he definitely enjoys like playing this roguish character. You know, this guy who's a forger. You know, he's a bit of a con man, and it's really interesting, like seeing him studying the mark. You know, you get to see him go through the process of actually doing, you know, the legwork before starting the heist, which I really like seeing that kind of stuff. It definitely has sort of those moments. And Ames is a very, very sharp individual, as we see, very ruthless, and he will call people out on their nonsense as well. Like he will absolutely tell you things, you know, like they are. You know, he calls out, I believe, the chemist guy, Yusuf, at one point. You know, he definitely calls out Cobb a few times. You know, this guy has, you know, he doesn't really care. He's out for the money. You know, he's going to get what he's going to get out of it. And, you know, he doesn't care, you know, he'll go through anything between him and them and what he wants.
I think the other interesting part, you know, before we move on about Tom Hardy's character here is that he is also the one, if you think back on the film, who actually drives the whole idea of how they're going to do Inception. On the character, because he is the one who is able to study people, study the problem, and boil it down to, you know, what they need to do emotionally to this person in order to plant the idea, which is just a fascinating concept, because Christopher Nolan, when he writes this film, doesn't place the insight, the great, you know, the character with all the great insight into the main characters, you know, even the character who of Saito, but he puts it into the forger, into the con man, the grifter, you know. So I think that really rings true, and it's a credit to Christopher Nolan's writing, I think. So
yeah, and really Hardy and Nolan work together very, very well. I mean, they've been together, you know, through this, through Dark Knight Rises, and also in Dunkirk. He did a really, really good job there. So you can tell that, you know, Nolan is playing with the actors that he wants. You know, he's working with people that work very, very well from him, and that Nolan knows how to get the right performance out of. And Hardy, I would say, is definitely one of his best.
I still think it's unfortunate that what they did to the Bane character with the mask and the voice, because I think if they hadn't done that, we would remember that Bane in a much better light, so but that's I digress. So you brought up a character, you were talking there, one of the characters you called out, and I want to go there. Let me make sure that I find the guy's name. Yusuf, played by Dilip Rao. This character for me, once again, just an incredibly interesting character, because he's kind of a coward, but he's a coward that when his back is against the wall can perform. So he does things out of necessity, but he's also a brilliant man. He has some great insights, as far as the chemist and things like that. Once again, a very small role, but I think an important role, because I think he brings that his cowardice shows exactly how much danger that they are in at different parts of the film. That's really what I got out of this character. But I enjoyed the performance. I thought he was, in the scenes that he shows up in, his acting skills are up to par with everybody else on screen, which I think is a lot to his credit, because he is on there with some incredible actors, and I think he does a great job. So what do you think of Rao's performance?
He was fine. I wouldn't say that he was a overly memorable character. He doesn't contribute a whole lot. He has a role that he needs to accomplish, though, and this character does it reasonably well. I think the cowardice does contrast well with a lot of these other guys who are hardcore professionals, and they're into the whole thing. Whereas this guy's like, yeah, are you sure you want us all to get killed, and take all of these risks as much? Well, okay. But you need the guy who can put them under, and you need the guy to drive the car through the getaway scenes while everybody else is asleep, doing their dream within a dream stuff. And that's what he's there for.
And that's the part where I thought that he really shined in the movie, because his emoting during the scenes where he's driving the getaway car and he's all alone. He's the person who has to make all the decisions, and Rao's ability to project his fear, but also project his desperation and performing during that desperation, I thought was really good in that part. It's a small part, but I thought it was an important part. So
yeah, and I would say that that's his character arc. He's overcoming his fear. He's having to do all this by himself. He doesn't have these other tougher people to rely on. He's got to do the job and follow the plan, whatever it takes. And he has to make sure that they survive long enough, or at least within the dream, long enough to get the job done and get out of there. So, I would say that even his small role has, a certain purpose, and, it goes somewhere narratively.
Absolutely. All right, let me go to another small role played by a giant of an actor. This was Miles, Cobb's father-in-law, played by Michael Caine. What can I say? I mean, Michael Caine is a legend. He's been a legend for decades. This role is incredibly small. It's not particularly important. He's there for a couple of scenes doing a couple of different things that are just kind of, I would almost say they were transitory scenes. I think that's fair to say. And yet I had to mention him because Michael Caine on screen just screams at you. I'm Michael Caine, and once again, I think your point is so well taken that almost all of the actors in these films are people that Christopher Nolan had worked with before, and obviously is very comfortable with. And obviously Michael Caine played Alfred Pennyworth in the Dark Knight movies. So, Michael Caine, it was just a pleasure in this movie. It was a guilty pleasure of mine just to watch him on screen. Did he bring a whole lot to the plot? Not particularly, but I don't really care. I enjoyed him in the movie. So anything you want to say about Michael Caine's character in the film, or Michael Caine's performance?
Yeah, definitely you can tell that Caine is doing this not just for the money or because, of what he thinks of the movies. I think he has a tremendous respect for Christopher Nolan as a person. And the reason why I say this is because he has been in almost every Nolan movie since The Prestige. He was in this.
Oh,
you know, he was in Prestige. He was in Tenet briefly. You know, he's that walk-on guy, that English nobleman that John David Washington talks to in Tenet. You know, so you don't come back the way that a Michael Caine does for Christopher Nolan, unless you have a really, really good working relationship and a really good friendship. So I
was just going to say, I'm sorry to cut you off. We have to do The Prestige sometime. That is one of my favorite movies. I mean, I love Christopher Nolan movies, but of all the Christopher Nolan movies, The Prestige is one of my absolute favorites. So
it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I will be absolutely honest. And I love to use it as an example of, like, you know, how the writing process works, because he equates it to a magic trick. I love it.
Yeah. And once again, Christopher Nolan seems to have, and I don't think it's a cult of personality. I do think, just like you, it's professional respect. There are a certain amount of actors, and you look at the actors and actresses who want to work with him over and over again. Christian Bale, Michael Caine. These people know their craft, and they want to work with them, which I think speaks highly of Christopher Nolan himself. So,
and just for a bit parts that he does, you know, Michael Caine comes in, you know, he does his Michael Caine-iest with it, and you know, and it's fun to watch because this guy is such a great actor, and you love watching him. I love this guy since, you know, The Man Who Would Be King. He's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. One other smaller character, let's do Marion. I can never pronounce her last name.
Cotillard.
Yeah, as Mal. What can I say about this character? I thought she was brilliant because at different times you get so many different things from this character. You get menace, you get that woman scorned type of just vitriol, but it's laced with love, like hurt love. You know, she feels like slighted by the man she loves, and to think that all of this is supposed to be a projection from his subconscious, you know, and the more we find out about Mal through the movie, the more her character and her portrayal of the character just blossoms, and there's so much depth to this character, and she doesn't have a ton of screen time, but the screen time she does have, she uses to just full effect. I absolutely love her performance in this movie. And when, spoiler alert, when she commits suicide and we get to see the full scene, it was just heartbreaking to me to realize that this woman has no grasp on reality. And I thought she played that just incredibly well. Just, you know, and all of you out there listening, it's just like, you hear us gushing over almost every single character, and that's how good the performances were in this film. So, kicking it over to you, Cotillard as Mal. What do you think?
Oh, she's great. Now, looking at the name Mal, it means bad. So it comes to so it's a Latin word for Mal, for bad. And you can definitely see that name was chosen very, very well, because everything negative that Cobb is suppressing is embodied in this character. You know, everything that he's trying to push away, everything he's trying to forget, you know, this obsession that he has with his past, and, you know, the guilt that he feels and his longing to see the kids again. All of this is wrapped up in his projection of this woman. And I will say Cotillard is an excellent villain actress, like amazing. Not just here, but as Talia in Dark Knight Rises. She was Lady Macbeth.
I forgot that she was Talia.
Yes,
oh
she
my
was.
Gosh.
Yes,
okay.
She was. Another Christopher Nolan recurring actor. And yeah, she was Lady Macbeth in the Michael Fassbender version that came out a few years ago, I think. She was excellent in that role. In fact, she was perfectly cast, I would say, for that. So yeah, she's really good at playing these, you know, enticing but very edgy and dark women. And yet she brings a heart and a personality to them. So they're not just the bad guy. And in the case of Mal, there's almost a case where you're kind of wondering, was she right? And that's the thing that gnaws at Cobb's brain. This thing, like, you know, there's a side of him that's wondering, okay, I'm certain that I'm right, that, you know, that this is the real world, that you're going to die if you die here. But what if he wasn't? And the movie messes with your head with that. So from a certain standpoint, yes, she's insane. If you look at it from the way that Cobb views it, or looks at it, yeah, she's completely out of her mind. Mm-hmm. But is she really? And I absolutely love the layers of mind effery that are in this film, and embodied through these characters. And Mal is such an enjoyable character. You see what she was when times were good in their marriage, when they spent those 50 years down in the deepest levels of the subconscious. You see it, with the children and all of this. And then things go wrong because of that one thing that Cobb did, which was to plant the idea in her mind that what if this isn't the real world? And everything goes, belly up basically because of that one decision. And of course, so you then get to the whole point of, is she right or is she not right? And you just never know. And I just love this character because of the ambiguity. And I love it because of the performance. Cotillard plays the dark moments really, really well. But she also plays the softer moments well too. The loving mother and wife and all of this, but she can play crazy like no one else's business. And I just love this actress for that. She's actually a fan cast for one of my own characters. She's that good for me.
Great. Well, okay. So let's tie her in to another main character. So Cobb, played by Leo DiCaprio. And, I'm going to talk about Leo by himself for a second, but I want to throw this scene out there and put my thoughts out there and then see what you have to say. There's a scene towards the end of the film where Mal has kidnapped Killian Murphy's character and is holding him, I think, with a knife to his throat or something. And Elliot Page's character comes down, Ariadne, and Cobb is there. And the two of them are having a back and forth. It is so heartfelt. It is so desperate. And you can feel the love and the anger and the hurt coming off of Cotillard, off of Mal's character. And you can feel the desperation and the heartbreak coming off of Leo's character, DiCaprio's character. And meanwhile, Elliot Page's character, Ariadne, is horrified. I mean, all of these performances coming down all together at the same time. And the chemistry between them was absolutely fantastic. It was, like you said, just mind-blowing levels of mind effery, because you're like, who is right here? You think you know who's right and what's going on, but do you really? And even if you do, you understand that Mal is not a mustache twirling villain. She is a woman who really thinks that she's right and has been hurt and been betrayed. And it really is, it tugs on your heartstrings and it's just incredibly powerful. That's the way I saw it. I was wondering what you thought of that scene.
Oh yeah, I definitely, and I will say the line between love and hate is very, very thin. And when you have a break of trust like that, an intense love can turn into bitterness and anger and all of these other things, and it's all wrapped up with the whole idea of the dream. The fact that he messed with her head. You do what he did to her, what you think you should never do, and that is to alter someone's thoughts. Especially if you love and respect them and trust them the way that you had a relationship like they did. So the fact that he did that, even out of desperation, even understanding why, you see all these powerful emotions and everybody's playing them so well. Dom, Leo DiCaprio's Dom, I think definitely does a really, really good job, dealing with his own pain. But when you look at Cotillard, she really does look like a betrayed wife in many respects. She feels in her own perspective like she's right. She is the heroine of her own story, which is what every good antagonist should be. And she's definitely that in this movie.
So, let's hop right into Leo DiCaprio and Cobb and go in a little more depth in him. Now, I've said this about Brad Pitt. I don't know if I've ever said it on a pod, but I've said it in private with you and others that Brad Pitt and Leo DiCaprio are linked forever in my mind as two actors that I think I got completely wrong at the beginning of their careers. And I'll admit when I was wrong, and I was wrong about the two of them. I thought when they first came on the scene, both of them, that they were pretty boys that were going to be playing, that were going to trade on their looks for their whole careers and play those types of roles. And boy, was I wrong, because both of these characters just have incredible acting talent. And Leo DiCaprio has shown that in numerous movies over the years. And I think this is one. You know, he really has. You know, if you had asked me at the beginning of his career if he had the acting ability to pull off a multifaceted role like this, I would have said no way in hell. But his ability to, well, first of all, he does the action stuff incredibly well. And we've seen that in a number of different films. And I believe that he does all of his own stunts in this film, you know, or most of them.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. But on top of that, it's kind of like Matt Damon is also in this ability. He brings this gravity to the role and this ability to be the man who is being, I guess, almost buffeted by fate in different directions, and yet try and exhibit some sort of control over it, his life. And so you really feel for this character who seems to be trying to bring some sense of order to his life, and whatever it is, he can't. He's being controlled by events outside of him, and I thought that he works incredibly well as the main character. I'm going to kick that over to you, Steve. But first of all, I want to welcome in. I want to introduce him. He's a little bit late, but late. He's making a fashionable entrance. He's Jeff Bracey, and I want to bring him in right now. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing, Jeff?
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the tardiness. I got a little time slip up there. That's totally on me, but glad I can make it.
It's all right. You were in Inception, you know, so
yeah,
they were messing with your mind. So
better late than never.
Well,
So
the top just wouldn't fall down, so I know I couldn't be here yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about Leo DiCaprio's Cobb, and we had just gotten talking about Mal and played by Cotillard, and how the two of them, the scene where they were at the very bottom of the elevator there, and she was holding Killian Murphy's character hostage there. But I was about to kick it over to Steve here to talk a little bit more about what he thought of Leo's performance in this movie, and then I'll kick it on over to you too, Jeff. So, let me start with Steve here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. All right. If you were to tell me at the beginning of his career and Pitt's career that they would both be in one of my favorite Tarantino movies, I would not have believed you. I would not have believed you. But if you look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, their performances really are part of the reason why I love watching that movie, whatever else it may be. So, and with DiCaprio particularly, he was kind of like poisoned a little bit for me because he was in Titanic. I don't like that movie. I don't like it. I'm sorry. It was one of those movies where the hype absolutely destroyed it for me. So yeah, so he was writing that. It took this movie and this performance to say, okay, this guy's got some real acting chops. He can be more than the pretty boy. You know, he can definitely have that, you know, multi-layered character, and, you know, he can bring something more, than that. He does have, you know, charisma and all of those things. You know, he does do that. But I find that he's taking on around this time, like almost a Robert Meacham type of persona. You know, this character is a little bit, you know, hard-bitten and worn down by life, and you know, and he has a little bit of that gravitas going for him in this movie. And I think that he brings it to the character of Cobb so well. And I mentioned last time that that it really is interesting. He does look a little bit like Christopher Nolan, and I'm wondering, you know, if that's on purpose or not. I have no idea. But you know, even leaving that aside, the way that he embodied the character, the way he played the character of Cobb, and the depths that he brought him to it. You know, he seems on the surface like he's got it all together, like he's the man with a plan. We find out that he's not, that he's got serious problems. He's repressing a lot of really bad stuff embodied in the character of Cotillard. You know, he has this pain that he's dealing with and this guilt over her death. You know, he feels like he failed her. You know, he feels like, you know, and he did in a sense, you know, because he planted the idea in her mind. So all of this coming together, and you see even in the quieter moments, the moments that he has with Ariadne, the moments that he has with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, you know, all of this, you see a little bit of the weight on Cobb in the performance, even without him having to say it. And that really kind of shows what levels of acting that he's reached, just with the experiences that he had up to that point. This was, I think, a turning point movie for Dicaprio, and made me a fan of him, really.
Cool. What did you think, Jeff, about Leo's performance in this movie? And then you haven't been here, so if you want to kick in, I would say that the only characters we haven't talked about yet, we're going to get to we haven't talked about Killian Murphy's character yet, and we haven't talked about Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So those two we haven't talked about yet. So if you want to bring in anything else, feel free, because I know you haven't been able to talk about anybody else. So
okay, I'll go ahead and start with the question as is with Leo. For me, like Steve, and I guess this is really indicative of all actors, unless you see something that the very first movie you see them in just sparks something, and you're like, oh, I should pay attention to this guy, because a lot of them start off in pretty low rent stuff. You cut your teeth, you earn your dues, you do all that sort of thing. It's pretty rare that you'll see an actor in like their first thing go like, okay, I see some of this guy, some star quality right away. I mean, like even like Brad Pitt, who Steve mentioned, in Thelma and Louise was a bit of a standout, but it was still a small part. Like that guy was kind of fun, but I didn't see what he would become by looking at that. So for me, Dicaprio was very much the same, even though I knew he got a lot of acclaim for the Baseball Diaries, and I saw bits of it, but it really wasn't a movie I was interested in, so I didn't pay attention to what he was doing in there and didn't really even finish the movie. But then I saw him do some stuff with, Howard Hughes. I was a fan of that, fan of Howard Hughes. So that was really interesting. But then I saw The Island, and that really, for me, solidified DiCaprio as somebody to really pay attention to. He had quite a journey as that character, and I can see that sort of thing here, and I'm sure that's why he took the role, because actors who want to act will act. I remember like Ed Harris one time complaining like he didn't want to do more actiony stuff, like when he did Alcatraz with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. He's like, I didn't get enough time to emote. That's what he wants to do. He really wants to get into the whole acting process, as opposed to creating an overall story. He's focused on his particular character first and foremost. So I can see why DiCaprio would enjoy this particular role, because it's a meaty role. He gets to go a lot of places there, and he does a really good job with it. And I would never put him together with Robert Mitchum, because Mitchum, just by his face, looks so world weary. But now that you said it, I see it. I see that DiCaprio has really encapsulated this trauma that he suffered, and the guilt that he bears in playing a part and causing it on himself and somebody he dearly loves. So it's as fantastic as the movie is in terms of its visuals. Another thing I have to hand to Nolan Productions is he really grabs the very best talent for each role he can find, and he makes it all just mesh together really well. And DiCaprio is just up here. Everybody in this movie is like way up here.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, it's high concept sci-fi fantasy, and they all just kill it. And you can tell this wasn't just a technical exercise, but also it's the kind of thing that evokes passion, and everybody's working on it, and that always makes a tremendous difference. As you watch the journey of his character, and we talked about the ending last time, that particular ambivalence that people are still debating about to this day, and I would kind of like to see if I could get them in a room together. Nobody's recording this. Just, hey, Nolan, DiCaprio, what do you think happened in the end? I'd love to hear that, because I'd like their thought processes. It's like watching the debate between Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott when they talk about the true meaning of Blade Runner. Is Deckard a replicant or not? And they each had diametrically opposed views on that. And I'd love to get his Dicaprio's impression of that, and then go back and watch the movie again and see how that decision informed his performance, because it's pretty spectacular.
Cool. Yeah, I now there's a question for the ages. Now that you said it, I got to throw it around. Was Deckard a replicant? Especially, and this was after the first time you watched Blade Runner. What did you think? I will say, when I first heard this theory that Deckard was a replicant in Blade Runner, I was like, people are insane. There's no way Deckard was a replicant. And then it started to make a lot of sense to me, to the point where I flipped 180 and absolutely believed it was a replicant. So what did you guys think the first time you saw the movie? Jeff?
Okay, I actually have two answers to this, and it all
Mm-hmm.
depends on which cut of the film you watch. The first cut of the film I saw was the theatrical release, and I actually quite like that, despite everything that Ridley Scott did with the film. I have to say, as a fan of cinema and the type of story that was being told, which was a sci-fi noir, it's very deeply steeped in noir, that I liked the voiceover that Harrison Ford was doing. And I like Harrison Ford's point of view that it was very important that Deckard was human. That
100% agree.
Yeah,
Yep.
it makes his story so much more impactful if he's human. And so for me, having the voiceover, having him be the hard-boiled, world weary, I've seen it and done it all, I've got this crappy job and I'm just kind of eking my way out, it makes his character and his story make sense. And as a purveyor of entertainment, I like that story better. However, when I watched the Ridley Scott's director's cut, Deckard is very clearly a replicant. All the clues are there, all the pieces there, from the very overt to the very subtle. James Edward Olmos is truly the only Blade Runner, because he's the actual human who's actually hunting them down, and that's the big trick that's being played on Deckard. There is that, he's a biological android made to kill his own kind, and that's what makes his leaving that life behind more interesting that way. But I got to go with and I rarely do this because I usually go in favor of the artist who's creating, but in this case, I'm going to go with Harrison Ford as the artist. For me, it works much better if Deckard is a human, and
That's the one
he has to make a very significant choice because of that.
That's the one I preferred as well, because I saw the theatrical cut first, and I also prefer the noir voiceover. But I agree with you. And what are we up to? Like 5 versions of Blade Runner at this point?
Let's see. So. I've got like the total collection, and I've got either 4 or 5 in this DVD pack. So it's I think it's at least 4.
Yeah, he was with this movie anyway. He was Snyder before, Zack Snyder before Snyder. So I almost said Scott Snyder, turning me into a WWE wrestler. So what do you think, real quick, Steve, on Deckard?
It's an interesting theory, and I don't know. I would say I've always been sort of one of those things where I could say, okay, I can kind of see a little bit of both, but I always kind of lean more to him being human, just because I had watched the theatrical cut like you guys did. And then it seemed like all these subsequent cuts were Ridley Scott trying to say, yeah, he's really a replicant. Look how artsy I am. Look at all these clues that I planted. He's a replicant, really. Yeah. The only thing that kind of ruins it is that the Blade Runner 2049 kind of put the kibosh on that by pretty much saying that, yeah, he was human and he had a kid with a replicant. But, before that, I mean, I like the idea of it, but then my problems sort of become, okay, how did he fool all of these people that are experienced Blade Runners for years, and nobody said a word about it or tried to stop him or tried to kill him or anything. So, yeah, I kind of have to lean a little bit more towards him being human, just between that and the sequel.
Not only that, I think that, like Jeff was saying, the end of the story is much more impactful if he's a human, because he has to basically give up everything he believes and what he's worked towards. I
mean, just the fact that we all agree on that, it shows, like, and like I said, normally I'm in favor of the vision of the guy who wrote the story and is directing the story, even though movies are a collaborative effort. But clearly, for all of us, it's a much more satisfying story that he's a human.
Yeah, because I think the arc is much more satisfying, or it feels more natural, because it's like this character has had to grow and change, and that's a whole, I'm sure we could do Blade Runner sometime. Sorry for the segue there, but this is one of those classic, nerd questions. You have, when it's put on the table, it has to be talked about. So,
this is what happens when you're spitballing live.
Yeah. So, okay, we got 2 characters left that we need to talk about. And I've been debating which one to go last. I think I'm going to save Joseph Gordon-Levitt for last. So let's get into, is it Killian or Cillian?
How is it?
Cillian.
Yeah. What are you going to say, Steve? All right.
I think it's, I'm sorry.
Or either one.
I say Cillian, but I think it's probably supposed to be Killian, given where he's from.
So Robert Fletcher's Killian Murphy. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys kick off on this one. I'm going to start with Jeff. So you just popped in. What did you think of Killian Murphy and Robert Fletcher in this movie?
I'll tell you, ever since I first saw this guy in 28 Days Later, now he's a guy who stood out. First movie I ever saw him in, and lucky enough, like I've never seen anything they did that was earlier than that. I don't even know if that was his very first movie, but he was a standout from the get-go, and he's just like everybody else in this cast. He just gets bloody better the more stuff he's in. He's one of these guys who's so interesting to watch. It becomes magnetic.
I gotta interject again real quick.
Yeah.
Steve and I have been talking about this. It blows my mind. Again, it's another guy that Christopher Nolan has worked with multiple times. He was the Scarecrow. It just popped my mind. But okay, sorry to interrupt, but it's just amazing.
Chris Nolan likes him enough that he was in all 3 of those Batman movies, even though the subsequent 2 are their cameos, but they're important cameos. Establishing very important things in the world at the time. So yeah, he's just completely fascinating to watch. Some people are fascinating just because of the work they do, or a particular character, or by force of their personality. Like like you'll watch Jack Nicholson all day long in those roles where he plays himself, and those roles where he doesn't play himself, and both are equally entertaining. He's just a really fascinating guy to observe on screen. And so I get the same sort of thing from Killian Murphy here, that there's something about him, something about the symmetry of his face and his eyes that just draws me in immediately. And then on top of that, his ability to perform as an actor. I'll give you a great example. If you ever watch one of Wes Craven's last films, Red Eye, where the majority of the action takes place on an airplane seat, like there's a whole hour of just Killian Murphy and I forget who he's co-starring with, and the whole game of cat and mouse between them, and they're stuck in airplane seats, and I'm in it the whole time. So that's just how good he is, and how good Wes was and everything else. But
delivery is haunting, I would say.
Yeah,
a lot of time. So Steve, what did you think of Killian Murphy in this film?
Oh, he was really, really good. And one thing I really love about Murphy in this movie is that he's playing against his usual type. He's usually playing villains or darker characters, or creepy characters, like he does with Scarecrow. He plays like a mob boss in Peaky Blinders. All of these kinds of movies and shows that he does that are, where he's really, really darker. That is not the case with Robert Fisher. Robert Fisher is a guy who's trying to do right by his father. That's at the end of the day, that's what he's doing. He's trying to do right by his family and doing what he thinks is right with the company that he has inherited. That is it, and he plays that role in that indecision really, really well. You would not expect him, to come out and have, those kinds of positive qualities that he brings out in this role particularly. But he does it really, really well. And, the moments that he has where he's full of doubt, where he's turning to people, for answers until he, finally comes up with the answer for himself, or thinks he does. And that evolution is really, really well handled, and it's very subtly delivered by Murphy. And I have to say, I really like his stuff, what I've seen of him. he's not in enough roles that have really drawn my attention personally. But when I've seen him, he's usually been outstanding in everything he's in, and that's definitely the case in this movie.
I think for me, what I have seen of Killian Murphy, he often plays, like I said, this haunted character who is very cerebral. Everything he does is deliberate and thoughtful, and I think that the way he emotes really lends itself to this character of Robert Fletcher, because everything that's going on with Robert Fletcher through most of this movie is in his mind and is about his mental process and his feelings towards characters and concepts changing. And I think Killian Murphy kills that in this film, because you can really see him, even when he is not speaking, the look on his face. Like I said, he's got this haunting. He has this ability to project deep and powerful feelings into his eyes and his face and make the audience realize that. And so you can see that even at the end of the film, when they're on the plane and nominally we think they're back in reality, you can see that he is processing this quote unquote dream he's just had and reconfiguring his reality. And I think that really lends itself to, the fact that lends itself to conveying the powerful emotional message in the film, and also gives a lot of depth to the fact that this movie is basically a backdrop is set against this man, Robert Fletcher's emotional journey through the entire film, his evolution emotionally. And eventually he's a victim. He is the victim of the film because he is being manipulated, even though we see the people victimizing him as the heroes because of the way the film is framed. The fact of the matter is he is the victim of the film.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's not a stupid victim. He has had training. They have to do some convincing to make that work. So I would say that he's just a victim is probably not the whole of his character, but I definitely see that he's definitely being victimized, by these people that are trying to, get him to break up the company.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point, because you can see it through the whole film, and that if the characters made any mistakes, it all would have been lost, because he's not the helpless victim. He's not a damsel in distress, So what were you going to add, Jeff?
That it's like I wanted to add that as viewers, we're actually even recognizing this. I find that I was okay with this because even though it's a manipulation, it still feels like ultimately this is a process that he came to. And given how, like, a lot of us feel in this country about super mega corporations, and I'd say that's especially relevant now with what's going on in Silicon Valley and other places, that even though he's essentially tricked into it, but he has to take the journey. He has to make the final decision. And that, like you said, there's a final shot where he's really processing. He could change his mind any day, but I don't think he will. But I think we also find a certain nobility in the fact that he does want to be his own man and build his own thing. And that allows us to accept the actions of people who've gone in and hijacked his psyche. And it's not only important that, like you said, they had to be very careful about how they did this with him, but the movie had to be very careful with how the characters handled it. Otherwise, we would have completely rejected the premise, and we would have seen them all as just dastardly villains by the end if it hadn't been handled well.
Absolutely. I would also say that the catharsis he has with his father, whether it's real or not, is emotionally satisfying for the audience. So
they literally gave him the second chance we don't get in real life.
Right. Definitely. So, I think that's just a great point. And I think that's part of the reason why the movie and the plot work so well, which once again, we got to give credit to the writing of Christopher Nolan here. So I think we really do. So let's tie it up then with the guy whose character is tied for me with one of my favorite characters. So my favorite characters in this film is a three-way tie between Tom Hardy's character, Ken Watanabe's character, and then this character, Arthur, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think you could see the genesis of this character in his performance in Looper. And I just love this character. I love his professionalism. I love his professional cynicism, when it comes to everything going on around him. And I love the no nonsense way he takes charge and does things, and the conflict and the acting, the dynamic tension between his character and then his opposite number, who is the rogue of the group, which is Tom Hardy's character. And once again, I'm mentioning Tom Hardy again. Tom Hardy really is the understated glue that ties a lot of these characters together. So it's just amazing. But I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt through this whole film. He, along with Leo, is present through the whole film, and I think he is a great foil to Leo DiCaprio. So while Leo DiCaprio is conflicted and emotionally damaged through the whole film, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is not as competent in a lot of ways as Leo, but he is much more assured of himself, and he's competent in what he does. So I don't think he could do Leo's job, but he does his own job very well. And I love the way he is a foil or a person to play against for all these different characters. I absolutely love the character of Arthur in this film. So I'm going to kick it off with Steve first, then go down to Jeff. What do you think of Arthur in this movie, Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Yeah, Arthur, he's a good foil. I think you got it about right. He's a good foil to Leo. He's a good foil for Ames, played by Hardy. And I really liked his relationship with Ariadne. I felt like that friendship was a really important glue because you have all these people that really don't get along at all, and you have these two people that are basically like, yep, we agree. Cobb has got problems and he's screwed up. Our job is kind of to watch over him, make sure that he doesn't do anything stupid, and that we all get out of one piece. Mm-hmm. I just love that foundation for the alliance between those two. I thought that I think he has some pretty good relationships with pretty much everybody, but I would say it's mainly those three dynamics that come in. And he's also the other person who knows all about Mal. He knows that what had gone on before. He knows why Leo has completely cracked up. He knows a lot, but he doesn't know everything, which is also interesting. Yeah. There are things that Ariadne sees that he didn't know about, and Ariadne's like, yeah, I could go and tell Arthur all of this stuff if if you don't go and shape yourself up and do these things that you need to do to not get us all killed.
And I think that's another reason why I like this character so much, because for lack of a better terms, he is the soldier in this movie. He is the loyal soldier who does his duty, but he didn't know all the details and everything. And so I really identify with that aspect of his character. I don't know what it is. I think that's part of the reason why he's one of my favorites.
He is Sam to Cobb's Frodo, basically. He's that loyal guy who comes through thick and thin. He may not understand like every little bit, but when you need somebody to come through in a pinch, that's this guy. This guy will never betray you. He will always be loyal to the end, and he will sacrifice himself for you if that's what it takes. Because that's the bond that he has with the hero. It's that strong.
And I don't think it hurts. In my opinion, he has the single best fight scene in the entire movie. So.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
What'd you think, Jeff?
There's a lot to like about this character. Gordon-Levitt is another guy whose first film that I saw him in, which I believe was Brick, which is a really great film where it's a complete criminal noir, but it's staged in a high school. But it does everything seriously and right, and then still throws in the kind of funny conflict of being in high school and being a detective, a hard-boiled detective dealing with a criminal empire sort of thing. For people who haven't seen that, check out Brick. Really good film. So Levitt's been somebody to watch ever since that film for me, and what I get out of him here is he is the consummate professional, and he's a specialist. Me and my wife are big fans of the show Leverage, and so Leo is the mastermind. He's the guy who's got to be a little good at everything, but he's also his greatest asset has to be to putting together the team, manipulating the target, and getting all the pieces in play, and being flexible enough to change the game plan on the fly. Levitt is the problem solver. he is that, like I said, that consummate professional, like the Elliot Spencer character on Leverage, who plays the hitter. He's the guy who goes in and does the physical work. But if you watch the TV series, he's also the most professional member of the team.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be the guy who would kill you and say, like, no offense, it's just the job kind of thing. And that's the way he deals with a lot of things in his life, even though the series has him make a very interesting course change. So watching Levitt's character, he's always cool. He's calm as a cucumber. Although I did like the play with him and Tom and Hardy. Like, here's the security specialist. He's firing off a little handgun, and Tom Hardy's like, you don't dream big enough. He pulls out this big honking machine gun with a grenade launcher on the front end. It's like, sometimes you can be a little too professional. You need to step outside the box, like the Rogue here. But I love how clearly he portrays this aspect all throughout the film. And he has the added advantage of basically knowing he's in the Matrix, unlike the people who populate it. Because I love the fight scene, and we know excuse me, nose is just itching like crazy today. We know in the fight scene that all these people who are trying to defend Killian Murphy are kind of like psychic antibodies that have been set up in his brain as part of his training to defend against mental intrusion. But they still, because that's his frame of reference, they still act like actual people. And who knows? They might even be based off the real world bodyguards that he has. So I love the fight scene where, like, this guy is giving his all to try and defeat him. And he's breathing hard, and he's emoting and expressing as he's dealing with his fight. And no matter how crazy the world gets, because Levitt understands where he is, his expression never changes. Like, he's never out of breath. He's always cool. And you're like, oh man, this guy is like a real machine in this space, because he understands, even if I fail, though he doesn't want to fail because he's that professional, I'm not going to die. So he can just go at things with abandon and always stay 100% cool while he's doing it. So being in this world, he realizes he's like an 80s action movie hero. He's as unstoppable as he wants to be, as long as he can keep his cool. And that's a lot of fun about this character.
Yeah. I have to say, just to tie this character up, if Joseph Gordon-Levitt could do a decent British accent, I could almost see him as James Bond.
Ooh.
So he really is. I don't know if he looks imposing enough to be James Bond, but he might be. But I think he could pull it off. But
yeah,
all right,
he's a little on the small side, but I'd be willing to give it a shot.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're pretty much all in agreement that this movie translates incredibly well for modern audiences. I don't think it loses anything. In fact, I think it's gained something. So, without, I don't think we really need to go into that much, but I do want to get into the rating of the film. There are people.
There's one thing I'd like to bring up before we do the wrap up, if you will, since you did offer me a chance to talk about something earlier.
Yep.
I want to bring up something about Mal.
Okay.
That I've always wondered about a little bit. When we discussed the themes of the film, we discussed how, whether or not we thought they were still in the dream, or at least Leo's still in the dream, or what's real, what's not real.
Sure.
So here's a supposition I've always had since I've watched the film, as a debate as whether or not they're in the dream world or not, and it plays into how the character of Mal is played. Having been in these different strata of reality, of dream reality, Leo creates, if you accept that he got out, the fiction of Mal, that she's in there. And you could say, like, he does it really well, because who would know her better than him? My kind of wondering about that is, though, a little postulate I kind of had, and I wonder if this will have the same impact as Steve had with 12 Monkeys, his theory, which still blows my mind. What if that's not actually a fiction of Mal? If we if we accept the fact that Leo is still in the dream, and therefore Mal is still in the dream, if they're still sharing a dream experience because they are affecting each other in this way, what do you think about that? That she's actually like this kind of hidden hero who's still trying to wake them both up, as opposed to being a victim of Leo's manipulation, trying to break her out of the dream cycle. What if some way now she's trying to incept him out of this permanent dream and get them back to their family?
I had considered something like that, at least with the idea. What if she's right?
Yeah.
And what if she's the one who is awake and he's the one who's dreaming, and he is, and his memory of her is what is keeping him in the dream. Yeah, I had considered that possibility. Yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting.
Yeah, it's like that wordplay in Total Recall where they try and and I have a theory about that whole thing where they, the guy comes in and tries to bamboozle Schwarzenegger. It's like, you're still in the machine. Your wife is out here waiting for you. All that. I figured it could be the same sort of scenario where she's desperately trying to pull him out of his coma. And I think that's a pretty interesting take, especially if you look at everything the actress and the character does in the context of the film.
So
yeah, you can definitely interpret it that way.
To build on that a little bit real quick before we wrap up, I had thought of something similar, but I think radically different at the same time. I have thought at times that what if going that deep and then getting into someone's brain and changing, doing Inception on them causes transference. I say that because you look at all of the other subconscious projections, and they're all automatons. They are white blood cells protecting. They don't have their own motivations. They don't have their own, hatch their own plans to do their own things. What if a portion of the subconscious of the other person actually exists in reality? And so when they're actually killing the last portion of Mal in the movie, he actually is killing his wife for real.
Yeah, because like I considered that as a possibility too, because like for their frame of thinking, they spent years together, living in the same dream. So like we still don't understand how consciousness sits in a physical body.
Yeah.
So what if there is this long mentally shared existence? What if there is some sort of crossover there? They're sharing existence like no other human beings ever had. It's like it's like the whole kaiju drift thing. Like I got a piece of you in my head, you got a piece of me in your head from Pacific Rim.
Yeah, and it really starts to mess with your mind, because I was thinking about that a while ago, which is that if she does exist as some form of consciousness in his brain, she's fighting for her own survival. She's trying to bring Cobb to her, and then that puts the movie in a whole different light. I mean, they basically are killing the last part of Mal, and Mal is fighting for her survival, and that is her reality now, because she doesn't exist physically necessarily anymore, but she does exist consciously in this other world, so boom, blows your whole brain up. So
another level of mind effery.
Exactly. There's so many different ways you can go with this movie, and I think we could do several pods just examining the concepts in this film.
Another film that you can just discuss endlessly.
Yeah. And once again, credit to the idea and the writing of Christopher Nolan. This is an incredible film. And it continues to have repercussions. I mean, I went to the movies last night, and they did the No Way Home trailer, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh,
they're still using the imagery from Inception in that movie, for multiverses and stuff. So this movie is older, and they're still using the mental imagery. That's how much of an effect it had on science fiction. That has become the standard for the reality folding in on itself and those types of things.
Yeah, I'm sure the first time we all saw Doctor Strange, like when they're folding the city around, I was like, oh, Inception.
Exactly.
Christopher Nolan completely redefined the standards of how to make a science fiction movie.
Yep. Yeah. So let's go ahead and rate this movie out of 10 for our Cinema Crusaders score. So I'm going to start with Steve and go around the horn, Jeff, and then I'll wrap it up. So Steve, what would you rate this movie out of 10?
There's not much to really complain about with this movie. It's just a really smart movie. on every level. The performances are as good as I can think of from many of these people. But at the same time, it's totally an ensemble. Nobody really steals it. Everybody basically does what they need to do. The actual imagery and the effects are mind-blowing for their time, and as we talked about, they're still influential on science fiction today. I would say at least a 9.3.
Okay, 9.3. Jeff, what about you?
Off the top of my head, I cannot think of any flaw that I really noticed in the film. There probably are, but I've got to go by what I can recall, and I can't recall anything, be it the acting, the story, the effects, anything like that. I just can't find any reason not to give it a 10. It's pretty darn close to perfect as you're going to get, in my opinion.
I have to agree with you. Anybody's watched this, I don't give out 10s usually.
Yeah.
But I look at this film, the direction, the writing, the production, the CGI, the acting, the concepts, everything about this movie, I honestly can't say much I would change at all for me. And I can watch this movie over and over again and get something different from it. So I think I'm going to give it a 10 as well. On IMDb, they have the movie as an 8.8 out of 10, which is very, very high for IMDb. For us, so that would be 10, 10, and 9.3. So that would average out to be like about a 9.6, 9.7,
yeah, more or
like
less.
that.
9.666, yeah.
So I'm going to say that we are going to give it a Cinema Crusaders score of 9.7 out of 10. There you go. So 9.7 out of 10.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, it's like I do the same thing you do, because it's like I don't like giving 10s out to anything, no matter how good they are. But it's like this movie is really, really hard to criticize.
Yeah.
There's only like a handful of films I can think of that I would give a 10 to, and this happens to be one of them.
Yeah.
But I decided, like, if I could not find any fault with a film, I just have to give it a 10 because it's earned it.
Even when I can't find fault with the film, I usually settle for like a 9.5, something like that.
Yeah.
But this one is just because the acting performances were so strong and the writing is so strong and the CGI still holds up and is good and the practical effects are great. It's just
such a total package.
Yeah.
And like you said, another thing that really gives it that 10 for me is the repeat watchability. How many films will we just watch over and over? I know, like, for instance, I'm a guy, like, I like to sit down for a film and watch it start to finish if I'm in the mood to watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever Jaws happens to play on the TV, I will just stop whatever I'm doing and just watch Jaws. It doesn't matter if it's only 5 minutes left to go or what. That film is so captivating. It's so masterfully handled by Spielberg. And that's another one of those films that just ranks so far above everybody else because it just does everything so right for its time.
Okay. And not only that, Inception is also one of those movies for me where I can watch it and just sit down and enjoy it just as a spectacle, and then watch it and sit down and think about it as well. So
it works on both levels.
Yeah, so it's really one of those movies that I think kind of is a cut above. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming on here. At the time of this recording, we're going to be doing an interview in a little bit, so I hope you guys can stick around for that.
Sure.
Like I said at the beginning, though, I want to throw you all out there. This is October, so this is wrapping up our regular schedule. We're going into Halloween movie madness this month. We're going to be doing shows. I don't think Jeff heard it. Cinema Crusaders is evolving going forward from here on out, starting with Halloween movie madness. We're going to be doing live casts, so we're going to be live streaming our shows on Sunday. So we're going to be doing that. And we got interviews, we got giveaways going on. We got lots of great stuff that we're going to be giving away, including a Day of the Dead poster from Sci-Fi that's coming out. We're going to give that away on Halloween. We're going to be doing a streaming show of movie marathons. So we're going to be streaming. I gotta think off the top of my head. Alien, which we have talked about on Sloppy Spoilers, and we're going to be streaming Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween. We're also going to be doing a Tales from the Crypt episode and a Twilight Zone episode, and can't forget it, the Charlie Brown Halloween special on Discord. So we're going to be doing that, and we got some interviews coming up on that show as well. I know Jeff has arranged an interview that we're going to be doing on the 22nd, and we got all sorts of stuff coming on. So make sure you guys tune in to Cinema Crusaders for Halloween Movie Madness. And on that note, we're going to go out with the promo for Cinema Crusaders Halloween. But before we do, I just want to say thank you and let my co-host say goodbye, and then we're going to be out of here for this episode. So go ahead and say goodbye, guys.
Yeah, thanks for watching. It's always really great experience talking about a movie that we love rather than tearing movies to shreds like the three of us often do on Sloppy Spoilers. And this is one of those movies that we can't help but come back to and again. It's that great.
Definitely. And
always a pleasure to be here, even if a little bit tardy. Guys, the interview that I've got wrangled for the 22nd will be comic artist and author Ben Templesmith, who's famous for 30 Days of Night. I had the a pleasure of being very associated with Ben for the year that was going on. We used to be pretty good online buddies, so it was nice that he was willing to do this. So looking forward to talking to him again in this format. And I want to also throw out some props here to Nemesis. He's the one who's putting together all these cool little things, these bumpers, these intros, and things, just adding to the production value of our shows here at Cinema Crusaders and Sloppy Spoilers and all around CC stuff. So, man, big ups to you there, Nemesis.
Thank you. Oh, and I can't believe I almost forgot this. All of you Cinema Crusaders and Comic Crusader fans, look for a very special interview for our Halloween Movie Madness. It's going to be a standalone interview on the YouTube channel, and then we're also going to be reviewing her book and putting it up on Comic Crusaders. That's right, we're going to be interviewing none other than the Mistress of the Night, Elvira, this month. So Cassandra Peterson. So look for that. So for that, we're going to wrap up the show. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.